More of the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
Welcome back in. What a football game Saturday night. The Eagles, as underdogs, defeat the Atlanta Falcons. Now they're moving on to the NFC title game where they'll be hosting the Minnesota Vikings this upcoming Sunday. 15-10 was the final at Lincoln Financial Field. Eagles do defeat the Atlanta Falcons. And now joining us is the color analyst for Falcons football on their radio network and former NFL quarterback. And that, of course, is David Archer, who's kind enough to hop on board with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Dave, appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for the time, and how are you?
You got it, Zach. Good to be with you, man.
Well, thank you. I know it must be a tough trip to Philadelphia for you guys over the weekend, but when you look back at this Falcons season, one thing that really stands out to me about the Falcons, and you look at their offense, and this has been an inconsistent team this year. We all know Julio Jones is a heck of a wide receiver, but I always scratch my head when I look at the stats and only see 3 regular season touchdowns. Didn't get a touchdown the other night. Why can't they convert with him in the red zone this season? What's been the problem there?
Well, it's multiple reasons. I think that we always want absolution, and we want to find that one specific answer we can put our finger on that'll determine what's going on, and there's not one. Julio was at times his own worst enemy. He dropped 2 touchdown passes this season. He only had 6 a year ago, so he dropped 2 touchdowns this year. Matt missed him a few times, and then we didn't use a lot of imagination to get him the ball down there a number of times as well. So I think you combine those elements, you come up with the numbers you come up with Julio Jones. Guy's a dramatic and dynamic player, but just has not been as effective as he needs to be down in the red zone.
What did you see the Eagles do to him the other night? Obviously, he got his yards going for a $101, but they kept him out of the end zone. So what did you notice the Eagles' defensive backs do to Julio Jones?
Well, in particular, they're pretty good down there anyway. They came in as one of the top red zone defenses in the league. They made it. They were very stingy down there again. Atlanta took their shots at him. If you go to that last sequence of plays on 1st and goal from the 9, Atlanta threw the ball at him 3 different times. Went with the back shoulder fade on 1st down. Was not a very good throw by Ryan. Really didn't put him up to bat, so he didn't have much of a chance to make that catch. 2nd down, we ran the kind of an ill-advised type play. I think he should have probably gone to Coleman there, but we ran a shovel pass to Teron Ward, and that just didn't work out. Fletcher Cox blew that up. And then you went back to Julio again, ran him on the slant route. They did a good job of getting him on the ground short of the goal line, around the 2-yard line, and then had the play set up, as you saw, the sprint out to try to get Julio one-on-one on the outside, which they did. Julio slipped and fell, and then Jalen did a good job of kind of coming up on his back and keeping him on the ground. I'm not going to make that call. It's too tight a game, and you're going to let him play at that point. But Matt did a great job of setting him up and giving him a chance at the end. And frankly, I didn't see the picture until later on. The ball goes right through his hands as he elevates in the air. So Ryan did a good job of giving him an opportunity to make the catch. So I didn't think they did anything in particular. Julio, like you said, Julio had 9 for 101. I think in 2 games against Philly over the last 2 seasons, he's got 19 catches for 236 yards, but just has not gotten in the end zone.
That was a big key for the Eagles going into this game to keep Julio Jones out of the end zone, as we're talking to David Archer right now on the David Lerner Associates hotline. You mentioned the last sequence at the end. At the 9, you have 4 downs to go for it. You're either going to get a touchdown or you're going to be sent packing home. You mentioned that 3rd down play, the slant. During the game, I thought they should have went more to the slant to Julio Jones, especially with the windy conditions at the link. Were you surprised that Sarkisian didn't run a little bit more on the slants? Because it was clear that's where they were going to get their yards and move the ball was by going to Julio Jones.
Yeah, I thought that the thing that disappointed me probably more than anything else in the game was our inability to move the ball on 1st down. We were really inefficient on 1st down, and we repeatedly went back to the run game. And we knew it was going to be a little bit tough sledding against that really good Eagle defense in the run, and you got to keep some semblance of that going to slow down their pass rush. But I didn't think we threw the ball enough on 1st down, and that would have lent itself to what you're talking about, the quick game, get Julio the ball, get Sanu the ball, get some of those guys going, some of those underneath throws that the Eagles were giving up when they were playing off on 1st down. I didn't think we took advantage of that enough, and ultimately that was what kind of really I think did in the Falcon defense or offense was the fact that just weren't efficient enough on first down. Really too many second long, third long situations.
I know you guys have two very good backs in Atlanta, but Freeman and the Eagles were completely stopping him, and Coleman was getting about 8 yards per carry. I think it was 7.9 on the final stat sheet. I looked at the running back carries in the second half. They had the same amount, 5 each, 5 for Freeman, 5 for Coleman. Why didn't they go to Coleman more? I know you mentioned that second down play late in the game. You wanted to see them go to him there. I was very surprised that Sarkisian didn't use Coleman more because he was having a lot of success.
Yeah, I think that the running back rotation is not something Steve necessarily works out. I think that they've got a coordination of when they get those two guys the ball or when those two guys are in the game and what their rotation is. Devontae was fighting a bit of a strained knee, and I think it affected him not only running the ball but affecting pass blocking. If you saw a couple of times they had Bradham coming through the middle, which really created some problems for Ryan because Devontae just couldn't set his feet and pick him up. So he probably shouldn't have been in the game. I think that's why Tevin was in the game late in the game. But, you look at Tev's numbers, 10 carries, 79 yards, and it, obviously it comes out to almost 8 yards a carry. But he had 2 runs. He had a 23-yard run and a 13-yard run. Other than that, he was stymied a great deal as well. I think that the thing I would have liked to have seen again, getting back to some of that first down success or lack thereof, would have been throwing them the ball on first down. Both Tevin and Devontae are outstanding receivers. Didn't see enough imagination in the game plan potentially to get those guys displaced, get those guys one-on-one on linebackers, and get them the ball in space.
I'll tell you, as we're talking to David Archer right now, I thought this game and momentum really shifted right before the end of the first half because the Eagles had a very sloppy start to this game. All 3 of their running backs that they use in that trio did put the ball on the turf. You also had the muff punt where it hit about 3 Eagles players. It probably just hit a 4th and a 5th. That ball was going everywhere on every Eagles gunner. But right before the end of the half, that was the interception the Falcons should have had. It got a fortuitous bounce into the hands of Torrey Smith. And then you have the Alshon Jeffrey catch to set up the long field goal. To go into the half only down by 1 for the Eagles, I thought was a big point in the game with all the mistakes they made early on.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that there's no question the Keanu Neal play was huge. I'm not sure why Key jumped in the air. I think that he misjudged the ball. He was playing the man, and then he didn't realize, the throw is horrible. Foles airmails the intended receiver. I think it caught Keanu Neal a little bit by off guard, and he misjudged the football, hits him in the knee. And, of course, Torrey Smith makes a heads-up play for a 20-yard gain. But the next play really is the second. It was the third play in that sequence. He actually threw a completion to Alshon Jeffrey for about 7 yards. And then the next play, Brian Poole blows the coverage. You're defending the sideline, very similar to what we saw last night in the Saint Viking game. Is you can't give up the intermediate throw. You can give up the short throw. You can't give up the intermediate throw. So they throw a 15-yard completion to Jeffrey, which sets up Elliott's field goal. So blown coverage there by Brian Poole to allow that throw to come in. But I agree with you. That was a key sequence to keep the Eagles in the game.
And in the second half, Foles, I know he didn't get a touchdown in the second half, and he didn't have a touchdown on the game. They did have that 1 touchdown drive with LeGarrette Blount on 4th and goal, which I thought was the right move to go for it. But Nick Foles went on 2 long drives that led to 2 field goals, found Alshon Jeffrey on one of those drives for 3 catches. How would you evaluate Nick Foles? This was the game I thought he needed to play, just no interceptions and just make the throws that they were asking you to make. I didn't think the Foles was great, obviously, but I thought he was better than what people probably thought going into this game.
No, I think you're exactly dead on in the fact that he did what they asked him to do because Atlanta did a poor job of putting him in stressful situations. They ran the ball well enough to stay on schedule, and he could throw the quick game, and Atlanta was willing to play at depth in the secondary and give up the slant routes, the hitch routes. He really never made a significant throw other than the one, the Alshon Jeffrey throw we just talked about there at the end of the half. And he actually airmailed 2 or 3 throws early in the game, which were probably a little disturbing to the fan there. But he did get on rhythm, and you allowed him to do that because you let him throw the short throws. And so getting back to his performance, it was what they expected and what they hoped he would be able to do. But I don't think Atlanta ever stressed him to put him in a situation where he had to make a throw down the field to move the ball.
Were you just concerned? I know going into this game, everyone was picking the Falcons, it seemed like, and the only people that were picking the Eagles were some of the people here in Philadelphia. Not going to say all, because I picked the Falcons to win by 4 points in this game. How big of a deal was it, the Underdog Card? It was played up here. Did the Falcons, I don't remember them talking any smack leading into this game, but the Underdog Card was something the Eagles definitely played up.
Yeah, I don't think that it really had an effect on Atlanta. Obviously, you try to find anything you can to help add a little bit fuel to the fire. Obviously, Philly didn't need the fact that they were an underdog to get ready for this game. They're defending their own building. And by the way, applaud the Eagle fan. I've done 12 playoff games in my time doing Falcon football over the last 15 seasons, including a Super Bowl and 2 NFC Championships games. One of them was in the Link against Philly back in 2004. That house on Saturday night was as good a house as I've ever seen. I mean, that was a phenomenal effort by the Philly fan. Having played there for a couple seasons or been on the team a couple seasons, I was very proud of the way the Philadelphia fans showed up and the way they bowed their back and helped their team, because that was a game where you needed the fan to help you, because it was such a hard-fought game and there were mistakes and neither team was playing great. So that little extra boost I think that the fan gave the Eagles was a big deal. But I don't think, as far as the underdog thing, that affected Atlanta at all.
No question, as we're talking to David Archer, we know Eagles fans, they're really second to none, and they had 3 road games this year that were basically home games with the amount of support that they get traveling all across the country. Let me just get your thoughts on Doug Pederson, because I think Doug Pederson is one of those underdog, really good success stories. When he first got the job, he was not a popular hire. After his first season, people were wondering really what does he do well, and then this year, in year number 2, he has the team 1 win away from going to the Super Bowl. And Doug, I thought, in his offensive staff executed a nice game plan for Nick Foles. So give me a little bit on Dougie P here in year number 2.
Well, I thought he, first of all, is the team play together, and obviously that team does, and that's a reflection of the coach, and it reflects how they practice, how they meet, all the things that you do to get ready to play a game. That's where that chemistry begins to come together. Obviously, he's been able to develop that, even with the problem at quarterback, with Wentz going down and Foles stepping in. They have not missed a beat. Now, I know that the last couple of games of the season for the Eagles weren't exactly what the fans were looking for, yet that team never wavered. So I give him that he gets a ton of credit for that, and his staff. Now, as far as the plan goes, we knew Schwartz's defense was going to be flying around and making plays, so we weren't overly concerned about it. You just didn't know what you were going to get on the offensive side and how were they going to use Foles. Thought the running backs would be a major league involved, and as it turns out throughout the game, I mean, Coach Pederson had to kind of worry a little bit because his backs were laying the ball on the ground. So that was the area he wanted to kind of lean on. I think he had to kind of lean on Foles, and Foles answered the call, made some key throws and some of those short throws we talked about. And then the key sequence for him late in the game, do I go for it on 4th and 1 inside the Falcon 5, or do I kick the field goal to make it a 15-10 game? I thought he leaned on his defense right there one more time, telling his team, hey, I believe in our defense, and we're going to make a stop. We're going to make them try to score a touchdown to beat us. We're not going to allow a field goal to beat us. That was obviously a key moment for him and the decision he made. So I give him all the credit in the world. I mean, those guys all play together, and obviously the players play and the coaches coach, but Doug Pederson's got them playing together.
And it was the right call, because if he went for it and didn't get it, Falcons would have walked out of there with the victory, just having to kick the field goal, because they were moving the ball as we know it on the last drive. Let me get your reaction to the 2 games from yesterday as we wrap it up with David Archer on the David Lerner Associates hotline. All right, let's get to the crazy finish first between Minnesota and the Saints. That was must-watch TV for those final 5 minutes, really the entire game. I thought it was unbelievable storylines. Minnesota goes up 17-0, then they Saints end up getting a lead, and they look like they're going to walk out of there with a victory before an improbable play happens.
Yeah, it just was the Viking team came out with all the energy in the building and really jumped out to a good start, played extremely well. Breeze made a couple of mistakes early in the game, and you gotta love his resolve and be able to come back out and play the way he did in the second half. Obviously, the block punt provided them the short field opportunity to get the ball to Kamara for the touchdown to put them up. But I mean, how do you never guess that something like that's going to happen when Keenum finds Diggs. It's a bench route. It's a standard route in the league late in the game when you don't have any timeouts. You're trying to get an intermediate throw, much like we talked about with Alshon Jeffrey's catch right before the end of the first half against the Falcons. That's the throw you're trying to make. And, yeah, I feel bad for the young safety, man. He's on the play. He's where he's supposed to be, but he gets there too early. And he realizes he's there too early. And he knows if he hits Diggs, it's going to be PI, and they're going to have an opportunity to line up and kick a field goal. So he tries to avoid him, yet kind of knowing that he's got to try to make a tackle if he can with his back end. He was there too early. He was the right spot there too early, and just misplayed it. And so that'll be one you'll have to live forever with, and that'll be one of those plays that'll forever live in infamy in New Orleans, but it'll be high regard. It'll be the immaculate Diggs catch in Minnesota, I guess.
I know you can never get over a play like that, like what happened with Marcus Williams, and I thought it was pretty neat how some of the Saints fans did welcome him with open arms and had the signs like, we love you, Marcus, and everything when the team was getting off the plane. But you guys were just went through 28-3. You guys bounced back this year, still make the postseason. Marcus Williams going to be thinking about this play for a long time. I know it's tough to move on, but how do you try to just move forward after such a devastating defeat in the postseason?
Yeah, it's a tough one, and he'll have to depend on his teammates and the coaches, and because he will not be able to. All you can do is log that away as experience. Like I said in the play, he just got there too early. He knew where he was supposed to be, so that's got to have to be something. That's a hard lesson to learn, no question about it, because they're going to go to the NFC Championship game in Philadelphia if he just makes the tackle. So hopefully he's a tough guy and can fight through it mentally, because that'll be the problem, because he's going to get reminded every time he goes on the road, just like we did when we on the road. Everybody wanted to remind us what happened in the Super Bowl. So I think the kid's a tremendous player. He obviously had a great season. I think he'll come back. He'll bounce back fine. When you play DB, you got to be a bit of a gunslinger. You got to understand you're going to get beat sometimes, and sometimes you're going to win. I think he'll get over it.
And then get into Jags and Pittsburgh. First off, you got to give a lot of credit to Doug Marrone. I know a lot of people first give the praise to Tom Coughlin, but Doug Marrone has done a sensational job with that Jaguars team this year. But then on the other end, Pittsburgh, that's a team that has been there before. And I was just surprised how much smack they were talking leading up to this game, basically just overlooking the Jaguars and looking ahead for a date to the AFC title game. And as we all know it, Jacksonville won, and they win by 3 points. I was very surprised with Pittsburgh, and maybe I shouldn't be because their coach really started it all in the middle of the year. But it's just stupid by Pittsburgh to vocally, just voice that of, hey, basically the Jaguars, we're going to beat them, and then we'll face New England.
Yeah, I saw where Le'Veon Bell or something said that they were going to be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
you got to kind of watch your mouth, because these teams, both sides of the ball get paid to play, and when you've got that much on the line from a playoff perspective, especially when you're Jacksonville and nobody gives you a chance. You talked about the underdog card. I'm assuming that they played that up pretty well in the Jacksonville locker room as well. But I was really impressed with Leonard Fournette. I've seen him play some. I saw him play a ton in college, living down here in the South. He was really impressive in that game. I know he had the big game in Week 5 against them, or Week 6, but I thought his performance this weekend was phenomenal. He was a physical force, and then Blake Bortles played how they needed him to play. You got to play playoff-style football and make plays and not make mistakes, and I thought he did a nice job of that. But you're right. Doug Marrone's done a nice job of that team. They're extremely talented. They've had some pretty good drafts over the years and pretty good opportunities to draft good players. They've cashed them in.
David, last one before we let you run. We know the two matchups this week. Two teams will be going to the Super Bowl, and we'll know those two teams on Sunday. We got the Eagles and the Vikings, and the Patriots and the Jaguars. Who do you like to see to march to Minnesota? Who do you think will be going to Super Bowl 52?
Well, it's hard to bet against Brady in New England in their building. They're so good up there. I do think Jacksonville goes in with an opportunity. I think if they can be physical and run the football, I think their defense is good enough to create Brady some problems with Brady. You got to pressure him. He can't move, so you pressure him. I think you can pressure him into some mistakes. But ultimately, I think New England finds a way to win that game. But I think it'll be much closer than people are giving it credit for. And I think it's going to be a slobber knocker in Philadelphia. I think that'll be a classic. Two great defenses going head-to-head. Which offense can kind of crack the egg a little bit and make a play I wouldn't be surprised if the score is very similar to the way the Falcon-Eagle game was. I think Philly at home with that crowd, I think Philly finds a way to get themselves to the Super Bowl.
Sounds good to me. David, hey, we appreciate the time. Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll talk to you again down the road.
Sounds good, man. Take care.